Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's session. Today we're going to be talking about how to podcast like a pro, but without editing. I'm just curious, how many people here have podcasts? Okay, so we have a few people with podcasts. A failed attempt. That's still an attempt. All right, so that's a step in the right direction. And how many of you spend a lot of time editing? All right. Okay. So some of you. Okay. Sweet. So that's what we're going to talk about. We want to eliminate the editing process, at least for the purpose of this presentation. Nothing wrong with editing, but for a number of reasons, I've decided to go in this direction. So this is what we're going to talk about, and hopefully we have enough time to cover it all. We're going to talk about who I am just a little bit, and why I started podcasting, specifically why I started doing it the way that I'm doing it. We're going to talk a little bit about my podcasting workflow, what I used to do before, and what I'm doing now. We're going to talk about planning your episode. And lastly, if we have time for some questions, we'll take some questions. And if we don't have time, I'll still be around. So if you have questions, feel free to ask them. All right, so let's get into it. My name is Leslie Samuel. My main blog is over here on the left, and it's called Become a Blogger. It should be very self-explanatory what I teach people to do. I teach people to start blogs. But specifically, how do you take something that you're passionate about, start a blog, create content, put it out there in the world, get people to come to the blog, and how do you turn that into a business? All right. Blog number 2 is my biology blog. I am a biology nerd, and it's called Interactive Biology, where I teach. The tagline is, this is interactive biology where we're making biology fun. I make really short biology videos covering one topic at a time to help students that are struggling, usually mostly university level students, struggling in their biology and physiology classes and so on. So that's what I do. Before, when I was doing this and I was working at a high school, teaching at a high school. It was a boarding academy, so the students lived there, so we taught them, and we were their parents, and you're on all week, even on the weekend, and all that good stuff. And I wanted to start a podcast. My wife and I had our first son. We now have our daughter, and life was a little hectic. How many of you can identify with life being a little hectic? And when I say a little hectic, I mean extremely hectic. All right? But I wanted to start a podcast. Why did I want to start a podcast? I wanted to start a podcast because I know that it's a great way to connect with your audience. Okay, someone can come to your blog, which I love, become a blogger. That should be the hint. And they read one of your articles, and they read it for how long? Maybe a minute, maybe 30 seconds, maybe 5 seconds. And then they're gone about their business. But when you do a podcast, what is the difference? Someone is listening to me every single week for 30 minutes, an hour, and it allows you to connect with your audience at a different level. But what was the problem? What was my situation that would cause a problem? I was very busy. I had a life. And most of you, all of you, not most of you have lives, all of you have lives. So I wanted to do it, but I needed to find an efficient way to do it. And that's where I decided to go about it the way that I'm going about it right now. And it's all based on the 80-20 rule. All right, I want to spend my time on the things that are going to have the biggest effect on my business. Now, what ends up happening often is we spend 80% of our time on the 20% of things that really you don't really need to be doing to actually grow your business. And for me, one of those things was editing. Now, of course, I could have outsourced the editing process, but I wanted to do something a little different. I wanted to just try something out. So when I started podcasting, this was my setup. I had a USB microphone. My USB microphone was plugged into my laptop. I would record it in Audacity, a very simple workflow. It works. It does a good job. You get a good quality audio. And once I'm finished recording that 30-minute audio, I would add my intro music and start editing and all this kind of stuff. And after I recorded that 30-minute episode, I'd spend an hour, 2 hours working on that episode just to get it to sound the way that I want it to sound. This was before. And then there was after. Because I know that time equals money. And the more time I spend doing the things that aren't really building my business, the less time I have to spend on the things that were actually going to build my business. So the process that I started doing is built around this device, and this device is called a mixer. And why? I mean, it looks very intimidating, maybe to some people. There's a whole bunch of knobs and levers, and don't worry about all of that for right now. We're going to walk through the process. But the significance of using the mixer as opposed to having it just go directly to my computer is I can bring in multiple things at one time. All right? All of these rows here are individual channels, and I could have different things coming in and work some magic. So I want to show you the process. As I said, this is the mixer, and we have a number of things that I have plugged into it. Now, this is my mixer, but it doesn't have to be as big of a mixer. I just went a little overboard because I'm kind of a tech nerd. So I had my microphone that I plugged into one channel. All right? And then I have a computer that has all of the sound effects, all of the music and all that good stuff, the intro music and so on that I use, and that is plugged in to another channel. Then I also do interviews. And if you're doing interviews, what's a very good technology to use for interviews? Anybody knows? Skype. Why? It's free. But not just that it's free, it's also, you get a really good quality audio sound. All right, so I have another computer over here that has Skype on it, and I'm plugging that into another channel. And then I have the mixer going into a digital recorder, and the digital recorder is what is recording the entire episode. So there are a number of things that I can do right now. I can start my intro music. And while that intro music is going, I can start talking into my microphone while the music is going. And then, once I'm finished doing my introduction, the person that's joining me in Skype can talk. And this is all happening at the same time. Now, when I am doing this, just to give you a little insight into the process, you start the intro music, and then when you start talking, what do you want to happen with the intro music? You want it to fade down, right? How in the world do you accomplish that? I will tell you right now. These levers right here allow you to control the volume. So we're going to act as if I'm recording an episode right now, okay? This is going to look very weird, and I didn't plan this out before, but just bear with me, and if I look a little crazy, it's because I'm a little crazy. All right, so this is doing what? Playing the sounds. All right, so I press music. It has started. All that good stuff, yada, yada. It's time for me to talk. I am going to turn that down, and I'm going to say, hello, this is Leslie Samuel, blah, 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 blah. Do my introduction, and I'm talking for a while, and when I'm finished talking, I will bring up the volume just a little bit to end out the intro music thingy majiggy, and then who comes in? My guest. I welcome my guest to the show, and my guest starts talking, and we have a conversation. And then what am I going to do at the end? I'm going to do the exact opposite, right? I'm going to start with the music faded down, and I'm going to be talking over that music. And then when I'm done talking, I'm going to raise that up. So you can kind of control the levels and everything, and it's all being recorded into this digital recorder. Oh, one more thing that's very important. I have headphones. Why do I have headphones? Well, I kind of want to hear what's going on. That's kind of important. And you don't want to have that just playing on speakers, because then they can be feedback and all that good stuff. So I can hear my guest. I can hear the music. I can hear myself. And the result sounds something like this. Hopefully it works. Oop. Let's do that manually. The result sounds something like this. Oh, I have no audio. Let's try that again. And the result sounds something like this. It's me. And the result sounds something like this.
888-835-2414.
So I play the first sound on here.
This is Learning with Leslie.
And then the music is gone. And then what am I going to do next? I'm going to turn it down, right? All right, so we're going to wait a few seconds. And then we're going to... Hello. Hello, and welcome to
another episode of Learning with Leslie, the podcast where you learn, I learn, we all learn about how to build an online business with a blog. No, I'm not talking about one of those blogs that will fall by the wayside when Google has a mood swing. I'm talking about one that will thrive no matter what gets thrown at it.
I'm letting it
I'm
go
your host, Leslie
because I
Summer
want
from
you to hear something.
BecomeAblogger.com, where we're changing the world one blog at a time. And as usual, I have another exciting interview for you today. For today's interview, I'm on the line with none other than Josh Elledge, who is the founder and chief executive angel of SavingsAngel.com, which bolsters the buying power of the average U.S. family by combining technology, coupons, and smart thinking for extreme savings on household consumables and everyday items. Through
I want you to listen to
SavingsAngels.com, Josh
what happens when I bring him in. And this is something that is very typical of almost all of my podcast episodes. All right. I just messed it up. But we're going to fast forward
to myself, you know what? We got to
at an 8 before it
has emerged as one of the nation's leading
So we're coming to the end of the intro.
Savings. He shares his successful couponing and savings expertise with millions of families, both online and in person, and in particular has appeared on TV and radio over 1,000 times. That's right, I said 1,000. So I thought I'd bring him on here to talk about how to get free media exposure for your blog, since that is something he knows a lot about. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Josh, my man, how are you doing?
Now listen to Josh.
Leslie, I'm incredible. And it's like with that introduction, it's like if my energy level was like at an 8 before, it's like automatically at like an 80. It's like infectious, which is why I listen to this podcast.
All right, so what happens at the beginning of my podcast is when I start the interview, no one expects all of that to happen. And they're always blown away and very excited and energized to start the interview and to get into the content that we were going to get into. So it really does a good job at helping you to stand out from many of the other podcasts that are out there in terms of the process that you use and the professionalism that you bring to the episode, even though you're not spending a ton of time doing the editing. But it's because you've invested in the technology, you've set it up, and you do it in a way where you can deliver a ton of value. Now, in terms of the equipment, I want to just run through a number of equipment options that you can use for the type of setup that we're talking about today. You can use any microphone that has an XLR cable. In other words, the cables that go into these things inside of your mixer. These are some options. The first one, the Audio-Technica ATR 2100 USB, is one of my favorite mics to recommend because it's relatively affordable, but it's actually a USB microphone and an XLR microphone. So if you're on the go, you can plug it directly into your computer. But if you have a more professional setup with a mixer and all that good stuff, you can plug it via XLR into your mixer. So that's that microphone. These are two other options. The one that I'm currently using is the Heil PR40 microphone, which really gives an awesome quality sound. In terms of your mixer, you have a number of options. The brand that I recommend is the Mackie VLZ4 series, and the prices range from $99 to $399. The difference in price just has to do with how big the mixer is, how many channels you have. So if you have a small 4-channel mixer, it's going to be I think the 4-channel is $99, and the one that I have is a 14-channel for $399. And then the digital recorder that I use is the Roland R-05, and that is what is recording the entire episode. The reason I choose to do it with a digital recorder as opposed to the computer or a laptop, I don't know how many of you have ever been recording something on your laptop and you go to start saving, and then you see this wheel spinning forever and ever, and something happens that does not make you very happy, and you want to take we're not going to get into all that, but this is, in my opinion and from my experience, I've never had anything go wrong with an episode that I've recorded using a digital recorder. So these are some equipment options that you can use. Now, the program that I use for playing back the audio, Soundbite by Black Cat Systems. You can purchase that. I don't remember the price. It's not very expensive. And that is what you do. You can bring in a number of audio files here, and you can click on any of them. You can set the audio levels individually. and you can have it play back if you're using a computer. If you're using an iPad, which is what I've just started doing recently, there's an app that I use for playing back my sound, and that is called iJingle Pro. All right, you can buy that in the App Store. For recording your interviews, of course, as I mentioned, you're using Skype. Now, if you are just recording via, you don't have the extensive setup with the digital recorder and all that good stuff, there's some software options that you can use for actually recording your interviews. On a Mac, the one that I recommend is called Call Recorder by Ecamm, E-C-A-M-M. And on a PC, you can use Pamela for Skype. And that will allow you to record both sides of the conversation. This is actually an easier process. If you just want to have someone call you up on Skype and record that interview, not going through the mixer and all that good stuff, these are some software options that you can use. Now, let's talk about the actual episode for a little bit. The problem with many podcast episodes is that there's no direction. And I want my podcast to have some direction. So there are three main parts to my podcast episodes. The introduction, I like to call it the meat, that's the good stuff of the episode. And then you have the closing, very simple. And in the introduction, I like to make a strong statement. I like to come out with a bang. As you can hear with my introduction, I'm all excited. You don't have to be all excited and what I do, but you want to make sure that you are making a good impression from the very beginning, because what does the beginning accomplish? Well, it sets the tone, and it hopefully gets them to say, hey, I want to continue listening. All right, so the more impactful you can make that introduction, the more likely that person is going to be to actually listen to the rest of the episode and get a ton of value. Then let's talk about the meat. Doesn't that look good? Actually, my mouth is watering now just by having that up on the screen. This is when you get into the core of the podcast episode. Whether it's a solo episode or it's an interview that you're doing, what I like to do, I don't read out a script or anything of that. So the introduction, I read that out. Why do I do that? I do that because I want to make sure to include all of the relevant details. If I'm interviewing you on my podcast, I want to make sure to paint you in the best possible light. So I want to get all of the relevant information and get that right on point. But for the core of the episode, for the meat of the episode, I just kind of have an outline of the topics that I want to make sure to cover. And maybe I might go over those things with the person when we're talking on Skype, if we're doing an interview, before we actually hit record. And I want to make sure that when you finish listening to one of my episodes, you have learned how to do something. You have accomplished a specific goal. There's something, whether we're talking about how to land PR for your blog or how to record a podcast or whatever the case might be, I want you to be able to walk away and say, now I know how to do ... All right? And then we go to the finish line. So we're getting to the closing. And as we get to the closing, we want to make sure to include all of the relevant details that gives them what is the next step. So that next step might be to go and check out this person that you just interviewed that did such an awesome job. That next step may be to subscribe to the podcast. Of course, you want them to subscribe so that they can get your future episodes. But I also like to include one call to action for something that they can do. So for me, for example, I have a membership site where they can get 30 days free access to that membership site, where they get courses and group coaching calls and all that stuff. So I have that very clear call to action. If you want to take your blogging business to the next level, head on over to, and what I've done is I've gotten a URL, a domain that redirects to that special offer so that it's very easy to remember. So in my case, I tell them, go to bloggercoaching.com and you can get free access for 30 days and I outline exactly what they're going to get access to. That call to action is very important because that helps you to grow the parts of your business that's actually building your business. The reason you're doing a podcast is, yes, you want to connect with your audience. That's very important. But after you've connected with your audience, you want them to take the next logical step. And that next logical step may be to join your email list or join whatever program you have. Last thing I want to mention, practice makes perfect. My first interviews, they don't sound anything like my interviews do today. I remember my first interview, it was kind of like I was interviewing Pat Flynn. And the introduction was something like, hey, this is Leslie Samuel. I'm excited to talk with Pat Flynn. I met him the other day. And welcome to the show. It was terrible. But the more I did it and the more I listened to myself, I started to see, wait, no, I don't. That junk was boring. I need to mix that up a little bit. I need to add some more value. And I started testing new things. And the more you practice, the better you get at it. That is the end of today's session. So questions, go ahead. Yes.
Does it have your voice and the other person, or just the other?
Because I'm using a mixer, that the output from that Skype call is going directly into one channel. Now, my voice is going via the microphone into another channel, but then I also have that going into the computer for that person on Skype to be able to hear me. All right, so when what's coming out of the computer is just the Skype audio. What's going into the computer is just my microphone. Well, my microphone and also the computer that's playing the sound effects. The outputs are going, everything is going to the mixer first. And then from the mixer, I can route it to wherever I want it to go. So for the person that's on Skype, they're hearing my audio, and they're hearing the audio that's coming from my iPad that's playing the music and all that stuff. Okay? And if you want to talk more about, yeah. So what I do, no, that's a great question. Not just from my headset. I'm looking on the digital recorder, and I'm asking the person, if I'm interviewing right now, I'm going to ask you to speak at the level that you would be speaking during the interview. And I'm going to look at the meter on the digital recorder, and I look for it to be between -6 and -12 dB. And if it's in that right range, I'm good to go, and I know we're set. Okay? Question? The picture with the diagram of what? Yep. Yes. Oh, that is a very good question. So recording? Okay, so what she's asking is, how is my microphone output going to the computer? This was my previous setup where there was actually, I had an interface that's connecting it so that there's an input and an output. I'm glad you asked that question. I don't remember the name of the audio interface that I'm using, but it's just something I got for like $10, $15 on Amazon where I could have an input and an output. So we have output from here as well coming into the Skype. So I'm glad you asked that question. Question here? Do I ever use more than 4 channels? No. But if I were doing an in-person interview, that's when I would use more than that. Yeah, so if I have 2 people in the room with me and we have 3 microphones, then I would be taking up these first 3 channels here as well. Question in the back? Yes. Yes? Audio interface. The one that I use is the Behringer audio interface. Basically, it has to have audio input and output and connect to your laptop via USB. And the question was, what do I Google if I want to find that interface? I'm just repeating that for the recording. And what I can do is right after this, I'll go on Amazon and find it and give it to you. Awesome. Okay, so this right here, and any microphone comes with an XLR cable. So this is going to be an XLR cable. This is just one. This is coming from RCA to the headphone input. So that's an 1/8" jack. Let's see. This is just the cable that comes with your headset. And this, once again, we're coming from the 1/8. It's going to depend on your laptop. But what your audio output is, whatever that is, like the headphone jack of that, for example, can go into this input depending on the type of input that you have. Thank you very much.